What makes nationalism? Ordinarily understood, geographical boundaries within which a common language is spoken, and on which men and women live, loving that area called their country, and to evolve their own peculiar and particular culture, constitutes nationalism. For a theosophical student, nationalism stands for something different. Just as man is not a material body in which intelligence takes birth and culture manifests itself uniquely, but is an immortal soul unfolding his powers, contacting the material vehicle and thus expressing forces of culture, so also is the case with nations. There is a national soul which tries to contact the national body, first brooding over it and then incarnating in it. The mind of the race is as palpable a reality as the mind in man. The decay and death of nations and races is analogous to the decay and death of human bodies, and what is true of man as a reincarnating ego is also true of the souls of nations and races. The life of a nation corresponds to the life of a human body, and the law of cycles applies to and works out in both. Just as types of human souls are different, so also are types of national souls. Thus can be understood the rise and fall of civilizations, the growth and decay of nations and races, each of which manifests a different aspect, all of which put together make the complete whole. Just as all the personality incarnations of an ego, from savagery to masterhood, express all the forces and powers inherent in the ego, bringing them into potency from a condition of latency, so also all the civilizations belonging to a particular country or continent, in their totality, form the inherent forces of the national soul made patent. Therefore, the true politician begins to work with the soul of nations, and thus for the higher nationalism. The way of the soul is the way of peace, concord, unity, and the nationalism that proceeds from the soul aspect of the nation is bound to produce harmony instead of discord. When we begin to apply the principles involved in the above, for the purposes of reconstructing our shattered world, we immediately see the vision of a world transformed into a garden, in which humanity grows many kinds of trees and plants, shrubs and creepers, which yield beautiful flowers or useful fruits. Hence the internationalism which is bound to come, if it were to precipitate in a rhythmic swing, would require of us who are working in a state of nationalism to establish within that state the necessary solidarity and harmony. International rhythm depends on the harmony of the many nations of the world, inspiring us to work for spiritualizing our respective nationalism in various countries of the world. The duty of the Theosophist is to spiritualize his own national environment, so that peace comes to prevail where there is strife today. Therefore, when we speak of national culture, national progress, national civilization, we speak of a reality provided that culture, progress, and civilizations are aspects of the national soul. In proportion as we disregard the soul aspect of the nation, we work for discord. When the national soul forces are taken into account, our patriotism assumes the virtue of reverent humility, and race pride and national arrogance are banished. This virtue enables us to learn from other nations, as well as giving confidence to us to teach them. Thus ultimately must arise the brotherhood of cultures and nations. In the parliament of men and the federation of the world, messengers from the various nations will come, not actuated by race pride and false patriotism, but inspired by the inherent force of their respective national soul, whose messengers they will be. In such an assembly envoys of East and West will foregather, not in a spirit of competition and rivalry, to get the most and yield the least in reference to their own land, but for the purposes of a higher altruism that looks at humanity as a unit of which the many nations are but component parts. For this consummation, Theosophists must work as true patriots, becoming channels for the life forces of their own national soul, and thus contribute their share in all lands towards erecting the temple of humanity, which the architects of humanity have so well planned.